I am your cult boyfriend. Today we are talking about the death of Damon Brooks in one of my all-time favorite slasher films called Urban Legend, 1998, directed by Jamie Blanks. Of course, starring like Alicia Witt, Jared Leto, Michael Rosenbaum, Tara Reid, Rebecca Gayheart, and, of course, Joshua Jackson as Damon Brooks, who Damon Brooks is one of my favorite horror movie characters of all time. Just mostly because I just feel that he fits the archetype so well, which his archetype is like douchebag. His archetype is troublemaker. His archetype actually is second death in a slasher movie. You always have to do your second death really well. You can do your opening kill well, you can do your first kill fine, whatever. That sets the tone. That's also extremely important, but I think that second deaths are even more important. Second deaths are a lot more important to me because it's not simply establishing tone. I mean, the first death in a horror movie is establishing tone, but the second death is establishing a rhythm, and we want to see if these slasher films can dance or not, or if they just completely lack rhythm. Urban Legend does not. Urban Legend's second death is phenomenal. Damon Brooks is, your jerk, nice guy character, yet he's played by Joshua Jackson, who if you know this channel well, we love our Dawson's Creek here. So we love our Pacey Witter, we love Joshua Jackson, and we love our Damon Brookses as well. Damon Brooks is an incredible character. In fact, the first 30 minutes of the film, to me, has one of the most interesting structures possible. You know, the most interesting like pacing because it's all set up by Joshua Jackson being in like possibly four scenes, but each scene is highlighted, is punctuated by is determined, is really each scene is fleshed out and given anatomy because of a lie that Damon Brooks tells. Damon Brooks is just completely full of lies, full of shit, which adds to the urban legend theme of the film. All Joshua Jackson's character does is tell these lies, but these lies are so incredibly important to the structure because each lie that he tells, and for whatever mostly nefarious and asshole reason he's telling these lies, either to scare a group of girls or sleep with the girl, you know, each lie really determines the tone of the scene. Each lie determines the narrative of the scene taking place until he's removed from us 30 minutes in, and he's the most insisted upon character up to that point. In fact, when he's gone, he's the character name you hear referenced nearly incessantly by like Parker going, well, I mean, he's Justin Killington. Oh, it's the only one that Alicia Witt, our final girl, really knows is missing. That's what kind of makes him so important in the end too. But Joshua Jackson had such a presence on this film, and I love the Damon Brooks character. He also completely demonstrates the performative qualities of teenagers and of teen media in general in a wonderful scene with Robert Englund, where he pretends to die. Like, we see him pretend to die before he actually, maybe 10 minutes before he actually dies. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful fucking scene, but really what he's doing is he's inversing the performative quality found in teenagers. Most deaths or a lot of deaths, maybe not most, but a lot of deaths, especially in 90s slashers, with which this channel is absolutely obsessed with, which I'm completely devoted to. Most deaths occur in a performative way, like literally on a stage, like and I know what you did last summer with someone on a stage like screaming out over the balcony and everyone thinks it's performance, or in like a Scream 2, once again on the stage and on a movie theater in front of an audience. Normally when these deaths happen, it's in a place where other people can see them and hear them, but they don't believe them because they're teenagers, or they see them and they see what's going on, and there's a far more interesting deconstructionist quality, like that, a truly postmodern quality that is actually happening, where when they're faking it, though, then they deserve it. Like, that's the Damon Brooks punishment. It's wild. Jamie Blanks is a very good director. Very good director. Urban Legend is a marvelous film. Is a completely marvelous movie. Mm. And Urban Legend is one of those interesting slasher films that did come in the thick, uh, in the most intensified part of the wave of like the Kevin Williamson postmodern slasher movies. You know, like this guy right here, an era that was defined by this face and that mask alone. Um, and yet it could have belonged in the 70s or 80s quite easily. It reminds me a lot of My Bloody Valentine, a lot more of like a Black Christmas, mostly a My Bloody Valentine, if I'm being completely honest. It's a far more classic feel to it. There are postmodern flourishes. In fact, there's enough postmodern techniques applied in the film that I do call it still straight up a postmodern like slasher movie, but it is one of those films like a Disturbing Behavior, or possibly like a there are a couple films from that period that don't necessarily completely conform to the postmodern staples of the time, and Urban Legend is one of those. Urban Legend's one of those that, like Jacob from you're going to hear an excerpt of a conversation that Jacob and I, an analysis, a critique that we did of Urban Legend a few months ago. Like Jacob would posit that and I would agree with him up to a point for sure that Urban Legend just happens to be in this wave, and that it's not necessarily a postmodern horror film. I mean, I think it is. I think it's slightly more of a postmodern horror film than it is like a traditional slasher film. But those traditional ideas and concepts are still there, and they're still being used in like severely Burton-esque ways and like really interesting ways that really made Urban Legend so unique when it came out. It was such a unique film, and it's kind of a mind-blowing film. Whenever I watch it, it's like you're entering into Jamie Blanks creates such a fascinating atmosphere, and it's an atmosphere that I love engulfing me. It's an atmosphere that I love being swallowed up by, because you won't find an atmosphere like the one in Urban Legend anywhere else. It's you know, it might be one of the best. It might be the best directed, like the best actualized, the best just simply the best directed slasher film of the time period that this channel devotes so much time to, from like 95 to 2002. It might be the best directed slasher film of that time, because there is such a fresh and unique and distinct um, vibe and attitude to this film, that even while I say it reminds me of a traditional slasher film, it would be just as out of place there as it is with the postmodern ones. But there are enough deconstructionist methods and postmodern flourishes that I think it's perfectly at home in 1998. You know, with The Faculty coming out the same year, I think it's still at home there. It just doesn't conform entirely to the Williamson school of thought. I love Damon Brooks, though. This video is dedicated to Damon Brooks. Easily one of my favorite horror movie deaths ever, ever. And Damon Brooks is really should be the template on how you write the second death, the second archetype who dies. This is truly the template. I find every scene with him so engaging, and obviously so did Jamie Blanks, and so did the camera, because the camera is obsessed with Joshua Jackson for the scenes that he is there on camera. The camera is just as obsessed as the audience is. There's something magnetic about this fucking kid. There's something like you're being drawn towards Joshua Jackson like by an irresistible force. It's just there. It was always there to Joshua Jackson. Still there to this day with Joshua Jackson. Guy has like serious movie star qualities, and shines through even in a role, even when he's playing a character that's as much of a fucking dirtbag and a loser as Damon Brooks. And man, I mean, maybe I relate to Damon Brooks more than I should too. I find characters like these easily relatable. I mean, I like to make terrible jokes in a group of friends to either shock or impress. You know, I luckily don't use his nice guy approach when trying to hit on girls. I don't do that, but but there is still something like he does mock the entire concept of the film. He is one of the skeptic characters. The characters are just straight up mocks um, the value of an urban legend. He mocks like death, and he trivializes it. He parodies it clearly in the lecture that we see him in. He's a guy who really doesn't seem to possess too much of an ideology. And yeah, I could definitely relate to that when I was like 19, like Damon's age in this film. I had a very like fuck you if you take the joke too seriously, or if you take anything too seriously, you're a fucking loser. I definitely had that mentality. I'm really happy I wasn't on YouTube back then. I would have been incorrigible, completely unlikable, and now I'm only slightly unlikable, so that's cool. All right, listen. Jacob and I are about to get into it. The video is going to change format, and you're gonna get to hear Jacob, who is incredibly smart, almost as smart as me, almost. And we're gonna talk about we're gonna really deconstruct, analyze, interpret, critique Damon Brooks as a character and his death, which is also so incredibly performative. In fact, the guy with the biggest hard on in the entire movie ends up dying in a way that mirrors an urban legend that is used to promote to promote you know, celibacy. What fucking word okay, the dude with the biggest hard on in the movie is killed in a way that mirrors an urban legend that is used to promote the idea of teenagers just not having sex. Because of course he's hung, and then I just love that he becomes a symbol for something that like he as a person so deliberately so deliberately acted against. I mean, that's like a bit of sick humor there, and I like it. You know what? To Damon Brooks, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the rest of the video. Killing Damon Brooks, Urban Legend Analysis. I'm your cult boyfriend. Hope you enjoyed this discussion.
Waiting for.
No, I definitely think like the emotional attachment comes later to other characters
Yes,
and I think what this
pretty
movie does
immediately.
really.
The
Oh yeah,
next death is one of my favorite horror characters from the '90s. Is the next death.
is
So
that
like,
Joshua Jackson? Is that
I could talk about Damon Brooks, Joshua Jackson for conservatively 14 hours straight.
it's a
There's
real
so much complexity to him in
it's a
four
real
scenes.
it's a real Anthony Hopkins thing. Like just he's in the movie for maybe like 6 minutes,
Such a
and he
huge impression. And they bring
he's
him up for the rest of the movie too,
oh
because
yeah,
he's
they do.
the only one they can confirm is like missing. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah, he what an impression he left. He's the one that people missed the most.
dude is in four scenes and lies in every
Every
single scene that he is in.
it's that one scene, like the scene that leads up to his death. It's just that's so upsetting to watch. But
I love that's one of my favorite slasher movie deaths. He gets the first one, but I love that he like lies. He's just like full of shit for all four scenes. The first scene he's is when they're saying Bloody Mary 5 times in front of Stanley Hall, and he pretends to be like a dead spirit come back to life or some bullshit. So that's like lie number one. Lie number two is the brilliant, and we can actually go into this scene before we go to his death.
oh, I know
But
it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The actual
the pop
introduction
rocks,
of urban legend. Yeah,
yeah, the pop rocks and cola scene, and we get a lot of
you get
they lay down the themes pretty thick in this scene.
also Robert Englund. Yeah.
Of course, the ultimate red herring.
Oh yeah. Also another character. This whole movie is just full of great characters that are only in the movie for like 5 minutes, and then you never see them again. Like he's barely in this movie, but he's the best. He's
This
the
is
best because
Robert's true, yeah.
you think he's the villain for the whole movie. That's why
It's
it
his
works.
only true scene. Like the other, he is in it later, but maybe for two
Oh yeah, he
lines
barely
in
talks
in a
in them,
scene. Yeah, this is
and
it.
then you just see
This is
his
it.
body in a trunk.
And I love these late '90s and early 2000s slasher movies because it really plays into like the performative nature of teens of young people.
Yeah.
It
But
normally, at least in a death, it puts them on a stage or puts them in some place where you can hear it, or it does like something like what it does here, where a teacher, an adult, an authority figure puts these people in a terrifying circumstance in a performative way. But of course, Damon Brooks inverses the situation, um,
yeah,
plays on the performative quality of that situation and do his own little performance act of actually the whole thing is trying to get Rebecca Gayhart's character who like mocks the professor Wexler in class to go up there and drink pop rocks and Coke soda, just like the Mikey kid from the commercials did, according to the urban legend, who is now dead because it like fucks up your insides. That's the urban legend, and it's all about trying to get her to do it. And Wexler knows that she won't, but Damon Brooks, Joshua Jackson, goes up there and just does it right away because he sees a moment to perform, and
yeah, it's so good.
pretends to die, and it's wonderfully done, actually.
I also love that scene because, and maybe this is a real thing, but why is that classroom so fucking enormous? Why are
It
they
is
giving like this
enormous.
stadium-sized classroom for a guy teaching a folklore class?
It
But
is
yes, go back to Damon. Go back to Damon.
true. I do love Damon. I love how he inverses the whole like performance thing for the kids. Because normally in slasher movies, like I said, these kids are and it happens to and it ends up happening to him, killed in a performative way so that people can hear you and people can see you, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
But I do like that he takes that moment to kind of inverse a popular trope, or at least like I mean, for me, like watching it, I don't think Wexler's the killer because of how unprepared he was to handle Damon fucking Brooks. But then again, that could be a reason why he killed him first. I understand that too, but ah. So the next time Damon lies, though, but do we want to spend more time on the urban legends he talks about? He talks about urban legends as folklore that societies use to gauge their values. I
Yeah, it's
mean, I
pretty
think,
straightforward.
yeah, it's pretty straightforward. We'll talk about like how Brenda's killing spree plays into what that society's values or shapes whatever. We'll talk about that when we get to her, really, because at this point Damon's just mocking the whole concept, and Parker
Mhm.
does this through the entire movie. He picks up where Damon leaves off. Damon's just mocking this whole concept. The third time Damon lies is when they're I'm going to go through all of Damon's lies because they're sitting around talking about how sad it is that Michelle got killed, and like secretly
Oh
Natalie
yes,
knows
yes, yes,
her,
yes,
and he
yes.
goes, "I did know that girl. I feel so sad," and everyone takes him seriously. And he says, "That girl gave great head. Get it? She gave
It
great head because her head got cut off."
it's he's such a piece of shit, and
Yeah, he
but
is.
he does it so well. Like he maybe it's because I know these people, but
He really,
I
he just
know
does it
I've
perfectly.
met people like Damon Brooks, so I'm just like, you piece of
I mean,
shit.
I can't think of a better second kill in a horror movie than the Damon Brooks character. Fucking super memorable. Like compare it to anyone else. Like
I guess
Henry
it's good
Winkler in
because
Scream and Sarah Michelle Gellar in Scream 2. They don't add up. They don't compare.
no, I think it is kind of a Sarah Michelle thing where it's like it's a character that you expect to be there for at least the bulk of the movie just because of what a
Yeah.
presence they hold on screen. And you can tell they knew he was going to be a presence on screen because they insist on him so much in like every scene he's in. So you expect him to be there longer than he is. So I think it's a really good effect that they kill him so soon.
Then we finally get to Damon's death. And this happens about 30 minutes into the movie. It's just wonderful. He has these four scenes of characterization where he does get worse and worse, but like it's still wonderful. He pretends
Yeah,
to
it's
be
a really
a
fucked up scene. It's a
yeah.
nice guy scene. Yeah, I'm a nice
It is
guy.
the nice guy scene. And I love that it plays off of my favorite meta joke of the movie is him trying to start his car. When it finally gets going, you hear, "I don't want to
I want to
wait," and
wait for
and he and he slams on it and goes, "Oh God!" So of course, I don't want to wait for my life to be over. He will die in the next scene. But more importantly, that is the theme song to Dawson's Creek, the show that he was the star of, or one of the stars of, and it's a Kevin Williamson production too. But I love that he annoyingly turns it off and goes like, "No, enough! I don't want to do that. Enough of that." Like that's a cool little inside joke kind of thing.
I
But
actually
then
didn't
we get
catch that.
it's a brilliant moment. I think I love it. that moment just gets me amped because I'm a huge Dawson's Creek and Joshua Jackson fan. But then we get to the tree where it is the ultimate nice guy scene, and and he starts
So
saying,
fuck.
I know someone who died. My girlfriend died. She had a syndrome, and I have
Syndrome.
so much love to give and stuff. And she ends up punching him because he gets a bit. The word is probably rapey. He gets a bit handsy, and she ends up having to punch him because he won't stop. I mean, he eventually does. Calls her a bitch in a really like interesting line delivery because it's really harsh the way he
Yeah.
delivers it for someone you're supposed to care about dying in 5 seconds. He goes
They
like,
do a
"You don't have to
really
be
good
such a
job of making you
bitch."
not care about him dying at all, so you can just like enjoy the aesthetic of how he dies, I
But it
feel.
doesn't work because it's Joshua Jackson with his Cruel Intention style platinum blonde hair looking like a fucking god. He's awesome. He's awesome. Very attractive fella and very charismatic. Loved his death. This death is very interesting.
It
Because
does. It does because it introduces like the classic thing of every time a murder happens, there's no proof of it happening, and so she
what I think really interesting about this, because the urban legend that they use is the one that's kind of supposed to scare women away from having premarital sex, and like this starts fitting into a little pattern where like Natalie already completed the moral of the story, like she wasn't going to sleep with Damon anyway, and like if the moral of that urban legend was to not have sex, because it's the one where the boyfriend
yeah,
is
yeah, the
hanging from the
boyfriend.
car and you hear the scratching on the she hears the scratching on the hood of the car from
And they comment
inside.
on that because then Rebecca Gayheart in the next scene, she's like, "Wait, you were making out with him?" And she was like, "No, I wasn't actually."
Exactly. And it's interesting. It's really funny how we're saying how unlikable Damon Brooks is, because even in most slasher movies, every character has like a save the cat moment, unless it's a really despicable moment. Every character has that moment where they do something good that you're supposed to like they make you laugh or do something. Like even Damon's jokes, I don't think landed on purpose, deliberately. Like she gave good head, shouldn't it didn't land, and it wasn't supposed to land. It was supposed to be just a bad joke. But I really felt for this character, and I like the fact that what actually kills him is like the ultimate like rejection of him, which is Natalie driving away in the car as fast as she can, is
Yeah,
what actually kills Damon Brooks. Like Natalie kills Damon. Like no,
technically, yeah.
technically, yeah. Which is kind of like the ultimate rejection of his advances, and he falls down and slams through the windshield. We need to leave Damon. I can literally
Yeah.
talk about this one
No, no.
unimportant character for the remaining part of this video, and I don't know
I
why I can, but I can.
I mean, if there's any um like like anything with that further, I think the most interesting is at the end in the like that last car ride where she's like, all of this is going to be forgotten. I'll become like a man, you'll become a cop. I think
That's really
I
cool.
that was the scene I thought was most compelling because it I don't know, it made the whole movie a little bit sadder because it's like you saw these people die. It's like, yeah, but it's all going to be forgotten. It doesn't matter. It's a really good, I don't know, sentiment to end the movie on, especially because it capitalizes on that. And then you find out like,
Absolutely.
no, this maybe this isn't actually how the story went, you know.
That's beautiful.
It's really
That's
nice, like the whole
beautiful.
twist at the end. Yeah.
Almost, because it might even be like a heavy-handed thing too, with Rebecca Gayhart's character at the end being like, "This is how it really happened." Everyone who tells an urban legend is butchering it and like reframing it into something that mirrors something they want, or something like that too.
Yeah.
Um,
The fact that there's a sequel with at least two recurring characters complicates that, but I don't think it matters that much in the grand scheme of things. I think it works. I really think it works. Like the whole idea that you should call the events of the movie itself into question or their
you
authenticity.
you definitely should, because the atmosphere never goes away. Jamie Blanks, who's a name I haven't said since we started this, the director, does a very
Yeah,
good job of creating this dreamy atmosphere. Like it does
I
feel dreamy.
sincerely I think this movie is like razor sharp. I really, really think it is. Like it's so clean to look at. Like the shot composition, editing, the color looks so good. Maybe it's a New England
Hmm.
thing because I'm from New England, so I like movies that have like this, northeast autumn feel, but with like all the browns and the golds. But it looks really pretty. I really love the color. It's great. It looks nice. It's well made.
It,
It's
it,
so well
it,
made.
I think it's extremely well made. I think it is maligned. I went my whole life, like 30 years of it, thinking this film was like pretty decently respected. Not as much as Scream, but at least as much as I know he did last summer. But it's not. It's
Uh,
not.
uh,
And I guess
among
we can
people, or go ahead.
and I guess we can compare now. Like its place in slasher history is kind of weird.
Yeah, it's vague. In a weird way, though, it's like it doesn't really feel like a Scream clone in a way because it's like people always questioned urban legends, so it's the kind of postmodern touches are almost few and far between. There's a few definitely, mostly in the finale, but I think in the build up to that, it's very subtle in a way. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, the postmodern touches are very few and far between, and and some of the most notable ones are directly referencing Kevin Williamson. So it's kind of difficult to say. I'm sure there are aspects of it that were directly by studio notes supposed to be Scream clone like. I'm
Yeah,
sure that
it's
had to
more the
happen.
vibe. It's more the vibe, like the
The
way it
vibe is
builds, like the
entirely different.
it's it does have a similar the Scream slash Scooby Doo thing of which of these characters is gonna be the killer and like setting up obvious people who look obviously guilty but aren't actually guilty. It does that, but it doesn't really insist on it, you know?
This one has a lot more in common with like a My Bloody Valentine,
I
which
agree.
it's a lot more classic feeling, a lot more classicist. Like I like it. The color texturing, as you were saying, and the character development, the way the story feels, like it feels a lot more like My Bloody Valentine, a lot more like a classic slasher than anything deconstructionist that Williamson would do.
I agree.
Um,
I agree. It feels, I mean, I was gonna say it feels sincere, but that would imply like, Scream is insincere, which I don't think is true. I think Scream is very sincere, but it's
yeah.
it's
Well,
yeah,
Scream has that new sincerity. It has to go
yeah,
through
that's
its
what I mean.
postmodern thing. Yeah.
Exactly. This is more like trying to be like, no, you should actually feel bad for these people. Like this is, although I guess again in the end it calls that into question, but that's almost more sad, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Urban Legend to me is a fantastic movie. Um,
I love it. It's so fun. I kind of want to watch it again. It's just great.
oh, I definitely could watch it again for sure.